See, I don't think a great movie or any movie should be a one-view work of art. If it's a really good movie, you should be able to watch it hundreds of times.
Dave, do you mind if I ask you a personal question?
No, not at all.
I've wondered whether you might be having some second thoughts about the mission.
How do you mean?
Rumors about something being dug up on the moon. I never gave these stories much credence, but particularly in view of some of the other things that have happened, I find them difficult to put out of my mind.
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Stanley wanted this film, 2001, to be the first science fiction film that's not considered trash. And then we have Pauline Kael calling it trash masquerading as art. Was he gutted, or how did you react?
Well, the film was very often rejected by older people and by very clever people, by very learned people, but they were not open because they had prejudices. They expected something after Dr. Strangelove on that same level. And young people who couldn't care less realized there was a surprise. There was a man who actually took a bow to the unknowable. He didn't pretend to know himself. And I'm deeply moved that after 50 years, this film is now as fresh as it was then.
It is.
Because we still are as ignorant about what else is in the universe as we were 50 years ago. And we just before this interview talked about great paintings, great Dutch paintings. You could take great composers, great novelists. The greatness means their work doesn't disappear. And that is true for Kubrick, for Ingmar Bergman, for all great artists.
And why do you think it's still so important?
Because it's still predicting the future. That hasn't come yet. It's still relevant, as Jan said. And I mean, as human beings, we're still hitting each other over the head. But technologically, we haven't achieved what they had predicted in 1968 we would be doing by 2001. And so it's still relevant, and we still haven't, got to that level of sophistication.
Yeah, you could.
So the aliens haven't really contacted us yet because we're not smart enough to deal with them yet.
Yeah, we can make it 2101.
No, well,
not even then.
Absolutely. I also don't think it's science fiction. No. It's fiction, all right, but it has nothing to do with science. It's much more a philosophical film. And there were some critics who said, oh, Kubrick, he's bringing religion through the back door. Not at all. He was not religious.
No, neither was Arthur C. Clarke.
Neither was Arthur C. Clarke, but both men were enormously respectful for what there must be, and they have no idea what it could be.
Yeah, but they did still show it at the Vatican. So there are some people who have a very spiritual reaction to 2001.
You as well?
I mean, I was very moved when the Vatican invited us to show the film inside the Vatican in Rome. And there was a cardinal, a guy with a red sort of gown, who introduced the film to loads of clerics and people and said, well, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see a film now made by an agnostic who hit the bullseye.
The music is great in the film. He sort of set the standard for almost every film that came after, the use of music in film. Did you guys talk a lot about that?
Well, absolutely. Very important is the music. And the key part is he had to love it. And people don't realize that that is the strongest element. I mean, does the Blue Danube fit for a space film? Yes, if you love it. Yeah, that's the answer. And he had another score, which was perfectly fine, but he was not in love with it. And I think this is a key part of also a very subjective artistic expression, that your personal love for something governs.
And I think it was so effective, actually, that use of music, which was very unusual for that subject matter at that time, using existing classical music, that now it's become so iconic that anytime you see anything with spaceships or flying coffee cans, they use Zarathustra or the Danube Waltz, because it's become synonymous with space travel. And young children go, oh, that's space music. They're intermingled forever now.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me. And I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
You were 14, 15 at the time?
14, yeah.
What do you remember of those days?
Oh, we were at the Lowe's Cinema in New York in 1968, the three of us. I'm the eldest of three girls, so I was 14. And this was the final show of what Daddy was doing at work every day. And so we had been to the studio, we'd visited the sets, we'd played with the chimpanzees, we'd been on the centrifuge, and we would visit whenever we got time off school, because MGM Studios was the ultimate children's playground. They had a fantastic back lot. So we were sitting in this audience, which was, you know, business people and wives who were bored and sitting there with their blue hair and jewelry, and they didn't get it at all, and they were bored to death. And the three of us are sitting there like, wow, this is incredible. And because we weren't judgmental, and because we didn't expect anything, we let it become this journey. We went on the journey with the movie. And if you open your mind and you're young, then you do just accept it. And it was the ultimate fantastic journey, I think. And then, in fact, the younger people made that movie the success that it was to begin with.
Very, very few films are, after 50 years, as fresh as 2001, or, for that matter, many other Kubrick films. Because if you look at them carefully, they all look at the same topic. Different genres, right, but they all look at our vanity, our frailty, our stupidity. And Kubrick had a very, very wonderful sort of almost simplistic sentence. He said, we are kidding ourselves when we think that we are governed by our intellect, knowledge, experience. Now, when it matters, we are governed by our emotions alone.